The pipe was roughly 70 feet long. It was only about 8 inches wide, and somewhere inside that dark tunnel, beneath a working military runway, was a 4-pound Yorkshire Terrier. A thin line trailed behind her. At the far end, one soldier kept calling her name. Every giant event has its teacups, the tiny true stories hiding inside the enormous ones. This story takes us to Luzon, the largest island in the Philippines, during the final year of the Second World War. In January 1945, Allied forces landed at Lingayen Gulf. They were beginning a major campaign to retake the island. Thousands of troops came ashore, ships crowded the Gulf, aircraft filled the skies. Engineers repaired roads, built facilities, and worked to keep military airfields operating. It was a campaign measured in armies, machines, and miles. But enormous campaigns also depend on very small things. Fuel arriving where it is needed, a photograph reaching the right officer, a message crossing an airfield, and one thin communications line reaching the other side of a runway. Corporal William A. Bill Wynne served with the 26th Photographic Reconnaissance Squadron of the United States Army Air Forces. His unit took photographs from the air. Those images helped commanders examine roads, terrain, airfields, and enemy positions. Bill also travelled with a rather unusual companion, a tiny Yorkshire Terrier named Smokey. Smokey was not an official military working dog. She had not been trained by the army, and although the men sometimes jokingly called her Corporal Smokey, she held no official rank. She was Bill's dog, she was his companion, and she became the squadron's unofficial mascot. Most accounts describe Smokey as weighing about 4 pounds and standing roughly 7 inches tall. She was small enough to carry easily, small enough to sleep inside a soldier's tent, and, as it turned out, small enough to go somewhere no soldier could follow. Bill had taught Smokey to obey commands and perform tricks. Together, they entertained servicemen and visited hospital patients. A wartime Red Cross letter later thanked Bill and Smokey for helping to cheer patients in Brisbane. Those performances might seem far removed from an airfield problem in the Philippines, but they established something important. Smokey knew Bill's voice. She trusted him, and Bill understood how to guide her. At an airfield in the Lingayen Gulf area, communications personnel faced a difficult job. A line had to be installed beneath the runway. They could dig a trench straight across it, but that would mean cutting open the runway. Aircraft operations could be interrupted. The work would have to be completed. Then the surface would have to be repaired. It was possible, but it would be slow and disruptive. Then someone noticed an existing drainage culvert running beneath the runway. At first, it seemed like the perfect answer. Then they looked inside. The culvert was extremely narrow. Most accounts describe it as roughly 70 feet long and only 8 inches wide. No person could crawl through it. Most dogs could not crawl through it either. Bill looked at the pipe, then he looked at Smokey. The plan was simple. A lightweight line would be attached to Smokey. She would carry it through the culvert. Once the line reached the other side, it could be used to pull the heavier communications wire beneath the runway. No trench, no opening the runway, no need to repair the surface afterwards. There was just one problem. Smokey had to enter the pipe. The opening was dark, the space was tight, and Bill would be waiting at the far end, completely out of sight. He moved to the opposite opening. Then he began calling her. According to Bill's later account, Smokey hesitated at first. It is not difficult to understand why. To the people around her, the culvert was a shortcut. To Smokey, it was a dark hole disappearing beneath an enormous runway. But Bill kept calling, and Smokey went inside. Within moments, she vanished from view. Above her, aircraft, vehicles, and personnel continued moving around the airfield. Beneath them, inside a narrow tunnel, a tiny dog crawled forward. The thin line followed behind her. Bill could not see her. He could only keep calling. The surviving accounts do not give us a perfect record of every second inside the pipe. We do not know exactly what Smokey could hear. We do not know what the floor of the culvert was like. We do not know whether the line scraped or caught against the sides. And there is no reliable evidence that bombs were falling during the crawl, as some later versions of the story claim. What we do know is much simpler. Smokey kept moving. For most of the journey, Bill waited beside an empty opening. Then something appeared in the darkness, 2 small eyes. Smokey had reached the far end. She emerged from the pipe with the line trailing behind her. The crawl reportedly took only a few minutes. The lightweight line could now be used to pull the communications wire through the culvert. The wire passed beneath the runway. The surface remained intact. Aircraft operations did not have to stop while a trench was cut and repaired. A difficult construction problem had been solved by the smallest member of the camp. Later retellings made Smokey's achievement much larger. Some claim that she saved hundreds of servicemen. Others said she protected dozens of aircraft. Some versions even placed her inside the pipe during an enemy attack. Those precise claims have not been firmly supported by the surviving evidence, and the story does not need them. Smokey did not decide the outcome of the Luzon campaign. She did not change the course of the war. She solved one real problem. One wire had to cross one runway. A person could not fit through the only available route. Smokey could. That is exactly why her story belongs inside a giant event. Wars are often remembered through maps, generals, battles, and enormous machines. But those machines depend on smaller systems, and those systems depend on people solving ordinary problems in extraordinary conditions. Sometimes the answer is more equipment, sometimes it is more labour, and sometimes the answer is noticing that the 4-pound dog beside you is the only one who fits. Smokey's size made the crawl possible. Her training made it practical, but trust carried her through the darkness. She entered the pipe because Bill was waiting at the other end. He kept calling, and she kept moving towards his voice. Above them was an enormous war. Beneath the runway was one narrow pipe. Inside it was a tiny dog pulling one thin line towards the light. It was not a victory that changed history. It was something smaller. One difficult job that needed to be done. One unusual solution, and the smallest possible helper. That was today's tiny true story inside an enormous event.